This is a time frame of the Idaho student murders that I've had questions about for a very, very long time. Let's discuss the 9 o'clock hour. Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. Disclaimer.
Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged.
The entire timeline of the Idaho student murder case is still such a huge mystery, but not as big of a mystery as it was whenever all of this first started. Here over the past few weeks or so, we've been getting a lot of information, with the majority of the timeline coming from the text messages between Dylan and Bethany and the rest of their phone activity, internet activity, social media activity, that information coming public. And it is really, really helping fill in the 8-hour gap, but it's causing a lot more concern and definitely creating a crap ton more questions. Now, as we've gone through the newest information, it's come to my attention that the information that came from WSU Kim towards the very beginning of this case might actually be correct. Now, we're going to get into a bigger, more in-depth look into the original story that came from Kim, and I'm going to reiterate the reasons why I had issues after the fact with all of the insanity that came with it, and her admission that she had not only not seen these messages themselves, but that her kids were refusing to sign police statements. So it was really difficult with that and all the chaos that came from that story to take anything that was coming from it seriously. Maybe in the beginning, I was really trying to hope that it was the truth because it made sense in a case that didn't make any sense at all, that there was some sort of knowledge of the situation and some sort of cleanup, some sort of self-preservation type sorority and or fraternity based issue that we were actually looking at here. But then we started hearing about blood in washing machines and all kinds of other crazy stuff, and it really took away from the basis. And the basis, I've pretty much always thought, had a little bit of stance. But here, with the newest information, it's really, really giving it legs. Again, we're going to do that in another video. Right now, I want to go over I want to say 9 to 9:30 timeline from the PCA, but that's because the original information that we heard that really got me questioning things was that apparently his phone activity, Bryan Kohberger's phone activity, showed that he left his apartment in Pullman, Washington on and near the WSU campus around 9 o'clock in the morning, got over to the King Road area around 9:12 in the morning, stuck around for a few minutes, and then was back at his apartment in 10-ish minutes by like 9:32. Now, it didn't really make a lot of sense to me then, and even now with the newest information that's come out that has some more actual points, data points when it comes to that timeline, it makes even less sense now. Now, the reason why I feel like this is really important is for the same reason I thought that it was really important to begin with. The front door of 1122 being seen wide open by a neighbor around 8:30 in the morning. That was a rumor that came out really, really, really early on, way before we had a lot of information at all regarding the victims themselves or anything at all about Bryan Kohberger. Even before the FBI got the files that ended up leading to the IGG, this information was coming out, again, about the front door of 1122 King Road being wide open around 8:30 in the morning. Now, we've heard from Kaylee Goncalves and a few other sources that it was actually the back slider that was left open. So then whenever we got the reports about the front door being wide open, it was really causing a lot more questions. Well, now we know for an actual fact that Dylan and Bethany were not asleep. They were awake. They were talking to family members. They were talking to friends. They were taking photos, or at least Bethany was taking photos. They were on social media, Instagram, Indeed, Snapchat. There was all kinds of things going on with that door apparently wide open at 8:30 in the morning. About 10 minutes or so before Bethany Funk would take photos, more than one, on her cell phone. Now, what got my attention is because I heard Brian Inton say this.
At like 9 in the morning. The cops don't know yet. The roommates don't know yet. 911 hasn't been called yet for hours. His Elantra is driving by the house again.
Yeah, they've got the surveillance video that shows him back near the house near 9:32 a.m.
And that really started having me question if I missed something, because in the PCA, as I showed you guys, it only talks about how the cellular data is what moved that direction. And again, the timing didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So what the state's response about the make and model of the car actually says, a vehicle matching the description of Vehicle 1 seen traveling southbound on Highway 95 in Moscow at 9:12 in the morning. Well, if you go and you look at the probable cause order, remember the one that they used to arrest Bryan Kohberger, but that now the state has deemed completely irrelevant. Let's just for funsies go back over what it actually says about this time period. The 8458 phone utilized cellular resources consistent with that phone leaving the area of the Kohberger residence at approximately 9 a.m. Approximately really doesn't work in this type of scenario. It really needs to be more specific. So we're just going to say at 9 in the morning. Now, what they have down, and this is what got my attention so much, was the very specific time frame here. They have that this phone utilized cellular resources that would provide coverage to the King Road residents between 9:12 and 9:21 in the morning. And then it says that the phone utilized resources consistent with the phone traveling back towards the Kohberger residence and arriving to the area at approximately 9:32. We'll notice that when it comes to the cellular resources, we're not seeing any camera footage of him leaving WSU being mentioned, coming back to WSU, going through Pullman. None of those things are being noted here. So you would expect for them to be noted when it came to this document where it mentions a car matching the description going southbound. As you can see, before that is 5:30 in the morning when a car matching the description comes back up. This is whenever the state is claiming Kohberger got back to his apartment. That's their timeline. And then it skips from the 9:12 down to the sighting of him at 12:34 in Clarkston, Washington at the Costco. So again, when it comes to this information, there's a lot of it missing that really would truly put those pieces together. And another reason why I have issues with this is because they're trying to tell us that Kohberger left his apartment all the way over here, the Steptoe Apartments, and was over here driving south on 95, meaning this way, past this gas station right here at 9:12. Well, to get to that gas station is a 20 to 23 minute drive, depending on which way you go. For him to have been passing in front of this specific area at 9:12 in the morning, he would have had to have been going almost like double the speed limit to pretty much be cutting the time directly in half. So they want us to believe that he drove all the way back over there, hung around for almost 10 minutes or so at the King Road residence for some odd reason, and then drove back all by 9:32 in 32 minutes. But that doesn't math for the timing that they're claiming the vehicle is passing in front of this area. That doesn't match at all. There's a bunch of time discrepancy there. Also, when I noticed that it was going to take me this way, I wanted to manipulate the route so that it would actually take me to this direction to go towards King Road. And it does change the timing to make it take even longer. Like you don't even get like that little 20-minute break anymore. So let's just say the car would have taken Highway 8 all the way to 95 and then went south on 95. The car to have been going south at 9:12 again would mean to have been going past it. So then we would have had to also manipulate this portion of it to go this way, and even possibly, no, I don't even want to take that out. I'm going to have to leave it there because it's a portion of it. So the car would have been this way and then had to have like taken this road. Why isn't it just letting me turn? Oh, I guess because I'm like putting the stop in there for the gas station. Okay, anyway. But then we would have to have done it this way for the car to have been going south before it would have gotten over here, because it wants us to say that the car hung out here for how long? From 9:12 to 9:21, that it was hanging out in this area. But then got all the way back to Steptoe Apartments in 32 minutes. And even without the phone apparently like hanging around in the area for a few minutes or whatever, There's just like no mathematical way that that works. Now, there's a big possibility because they've already proven this fact that because of traffic on cell towers, that maybe his phone just like moved and ended up like on a tower closer this way, just like a lot of people are expecting that to be the case when it comes to, just his phone information issue here in general, because we know that this is like a really rural area. There's not a lot of traffic or humans out here, and like we've already seen, and we have people from the news stations and here in the internet world going out there and actually going in the direction that Bryan Kohberger is claiming that he went, and they're losing service whenever they get out there. Okay, so I'm going to run down the timeline of how I wrote down everybody's activities together from like 8:30 all the way down to where Bryan Kohberger is basically seen at 12:30 down in Washington at the Costco. Okay. So around 8:30 in the morning is whenever the neighbor is claiming that the door is wide open. At this point, like I've already mentioned, Dylan is on Instagram. Bethany has spoken to her mom and her dad and also called another number that they haven't given us the information for. And there's also a bunch of photos. Well, I can't really say a bunch, but there's photos, meaning more than one, that Bethany takes on her phone from 8:41 to 8:42. That is all going on with the door being open and all that activity before they're claiming that Bryan Kohberger left his apartment at 9 o'clock in the morning. So then they have him leaving again at approximately 9 a.m. And as the map shows, it takes 23 minutes to get just to King Road. So that would put it at 9:23. Well, at 9:04, Bethany is now getting a text message from her mom, and Dylan is still on Instagram. At 9:12, so in half the time it would take for Bryan to actually get to this location if he left his apartment at 9 o'clock in the morning, at 9:12, a car is seen going south on Highway 95 in Moscow. And again, the timing for that doesn't make sense. Like, I know that it sounds insane that I'm even saying this because, oh my gosh, we've got the phone activity in that area, and then we have a car going south on 95. Okay, well, it doesn't say that it's Bryan's car. Even after all this time, it's still stating in that document that I showed you that it's just a vehicle that matches SV1. It's 9 o'clock in the morning at this point. You don't have a license plate. You can't see if it has a license plate on the front or the back. There's not actual verification that it's actually Bryan Kohberger, or is it one of the over 20-something thousand vehicles that look like that and are actually that make and model in that area? The statistics for that car being seen at the exact same times in question here, unfortunately, make it to where we have to ask these questions. I forgot to put this portion of the information in here. Now, we went over the self-authenticating records, and we found that there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't really make a lot of sense when it comes to evidence being submitted by the state. I don't understand why we need what Kaylee bought for Murphy or what Dylan bought at TJ Maxx, but those are records being literally submitted by the state as evidence. Okay. Now, there's been a response from the defense, and this is one of the many documents that we still need to go over in the newest drop of so many freaking new ones. But a portion of that is about the camera footage in question at 1311 South Main, where they are now claiming that at 9:12 in the morning, a like vehicle that matches the description of SV1 is going south on 95. This is what the defense has to state about that footage. It's number 40 on the list. Sunset Mart surveillance video for November 13th of 2022. It's a hard drive that was provided to them April 5th of 23. This disclosure contains surveillance footage from several cameras. There are 11 separate folders containing subfolders of footage. The recordings provide hours and hours of surveillance footage. The state has not provided any specifics related to what is intended to rely on or use as evidence, nor a certificate that the records/videos was made. I don't think that's supposed to be correct, but okay. And kept in course of a regularly conducted business activity, and if it was the regular practice of that business to make the report or record. I don't really quite understand this portion of it because most businesses have security cameras. My whole thing is, why are there 11 separate folders whenever we already have information that they're claiming that the portion of camera footage of the car in question at this business is 9:12 in the morning? So why is there not just a clip of that car that it's talking about? Why is there 11 folders with subfolders and all this footage and hours of footage for something that's supposed to just be a few seconds? I don't know why this is such a disaster. There's a lot of information here that's not needed, and it seems like the state didn't care to go through it and separate it and take out the things that were not relevant, and that's why now the record is just a mess. And you have to remember, this mess is the stuff that the defense has to go through to try to even get to the truth. And it sounds, just from this one little portion, again, that few little bit of seconds that they're talking about in the records provided by the state, they're submitting hours and hours and hours of unnecessary things for. It's just so unnecessary. It doesn't help either side to do that. But we also have to remember that around 9 o'clock in the morning is also where we got a story from a guy named Dave. Now, his story could never be verified either. As a matter of fact, him and WSU Kim were in one of these documentaries. I don't remember which one, but it was one of the ones that had Chronicles of Olivia in it, and then both WSU Kim and Dave were in it. WSU Kim showed her face, and the Dave guy had like a hoodie on, and his voice was, hidden with some sort of whatever voice changer thing. And as all these documentary things do, none of these claims could be verified or anything like that. And as a matter of fact, the messages like magically just like poofed and disappeared whenever Dave was on the TV. And you have to also remember that Kim has also claimed that she's never seen the messages either. The only reason why it's such a big deal now is because we have proof that the girls were on social media, Snapchat being one of the platforms, and there's just way more names now in play in this situation, not just in the new information that we're getting about the roommates in that morning, but now there's some other guy's name whenever it comes to the possible DNA that was found in Maddie's fingernail clippings. There's a lot of new information, but let's try to stay on task. Now, the Dave guy claimed that he also had messages, again, that disappeared, like I just mentioned, but also that he's friends with one of the guys from the Banfield. Yeah, the Banfield information where you can actually see like 4 people sneaking away in the background, and that's like the original timeline for the crime. That Banfield. He's apparently friends with one of those guys, and the story that he came out and told was that his friend went back to the Banfield because whenever they were getting pulled over and talked to by the cops, they had something highly illegal in their possession. So in order to not go to jail, they threw it out in the field somewhere and hoped that the cops didn't notice, and I guess the cop didn't notice, because the next morning the guy went back to try to find it. And the friend apparently told Dave that while he was at the field, there was a guy out there that he didn't recognize that was in like a black hoodie. Now, again, this story came out after Bryan Kohberger was arrested, after all this information came out. That's why so much of this is so hard to believe. You've got to hold like a ginormous 3,000-pound ton of salt. Forget a grain. Like, that's the problem. That's the problem. Anyway, so the car is going south at 9:12, which is again more than twice as fast as it would take for the car to get there. Then the car is supposed to have hung around for a little while, at least like 9-10ish minutes, before then heading back to his apartment. And he would have gotten back to his apartment before the timing would have actually allowed, no matter which way he would have gone. And unless they have him on camera like super hella speeding and somehow not getting some sort of like, well, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and act like I know. I don't know if they have the camera speed cameras where they can like take a picture of you if you're speeding and send you a ticket. I don't know if they have those there. But for him to have like magically not gotten pulled over for as fast as they're trying to say that he would have had to have gone to fit their timeline, that just doesn't honestly make sense. And then we also have to remember that at 10:31, we have him at his house, at his apartment, taking a selfie in his bathroom. Now, I do find interesting that at this 10:31 time, we do have Dylan getting messages back and forth on Snapchat. Just certain things I'm still going to say are interesting, regardless if it means anything or not. Now, again, it's 10:31 he takes that selfie, and at 12:30ish is whenever he's seen at the Costco down in Clarkston. Now, it's a 50-ish or so minute drive, and that's like a 2-hour-ish gap between the 10:30 selfie and the 12:30ish of him being on camera or whatever at the Costco. So let's say he was actually going to a church service. That's the only hour that I can think of when it comes to the unaccounted for time. If he would have left pretty soon after taking that selfie, because he looked like he was done getting ready. I mean, why else sends a thumbs up photo? And that's another thing about that photo. A lot of people are acting like it's so scary, it's so creepy. Okay, but it's not if he didn't do it, and it's just a normal guy getting ready for his normal last day, getting dressed for whatever he normally does on a Sunday, and taking a picture and sending it to somebody. I mean, if this whole thing wasn't a situation, it would seem freaking normal as hell. But the whole thing, it just doesn't work. The timing for it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And you're sitting here telling me that you have this whole timeline where you've got hours of gap in between where you're claiming you see him on camera versus what his phone is doing, but you're not telling us that you have footage in the daylight of him closer to King Road on any of the other cameras that you're claiming that you have for the event timeline itself. You don't have like those exact same cameras that you know can actually pick up the road. Also, like stating, yeah, it also has this exact same car on its camera again in these exact same locations. You don't have the WSU cameras showing that he's leaving his apartment. You have hours and hours of gap, and then suddenly, oh, just some car that matches the descriptions going south on 95. And like I showed you, it doesn't really add up for that location, the direction you're supposed to go, the timing of it. It doesn't add up at all. And that's just one little piece of this. And I'm not sitting here trying to dissect things down to where they don't make sense. You just legitimately will look at them like a normal human, and the crap just does not add up. I didn't create Google or the algorithm or the programming that gives me answers for how maps works, okay? I took the timeline given by the state, given by the timeline that we're being given in the official documents, and plugged it into an international worldwide use system, and it's the one who gave me the answer, okay? Not me, wasn't my brain, it was Google. Now, I know that Nika has talked about this over at Nika's Neuro Nuggets. She's talked about the 4chan post that mentions how that front door was wide open in the morning and that somebody's body was blocking a door. I didn't actually know that that was part of the 4chan post until I heard her talk about it. I knew about the 4chan post that talked about the party and the people at the fraternity party that got into a big whole argument with Ethan. And I know like all the names and stuff that are mentioned and the disgusting ass things that are mentioned, but I did not know about that one. So we're going to end up talking about that too, because that portion of the 4chan post also matches with what Christy Goncalves told us, but we still are trying to figure out what actually happened here that actually started the 911 call, because we were told this entire time that it was because the door was not able to be opened. Hunter came in, got it opened. He looked inside, saw what happened to Xana and Ethan, yelled, "Get the F out and call the cops," or "Call 911," and that's what initiated the 911 call. But what we're hearing is that happening literally in the middle of the call. So even that is still a big mystery, even though we have a huge chunk of an answer. But I wanted to discuss the 9 o'clock hour with you guys because there was a lot going on, and we have to go back to the original story that we were being told about that damn front door being opened. That is something that has never left my mind, literally ever. And if we have the girls physically up, moving around, on social media, looking for jobs, talking to parents, don't you think at that point the smell would have started to become a bit overwhelming? So of course the front door probably needed to be opened. I mean, come on. It just makes more and more sense now that they were very well aware of the situation. And I think a lot of my commenters were right in stating that they really did call people over so that they could be the ones to like take the responsibility of finding the situation. And they could be sort of like off to the side. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. That's how I feel about it, because there's no way, with all of the communication between the two of them and everything that we are seeing and everything that we are still putting together, that they did not know. The truth is always going to be stranger than fiction. But that's it, you guys. We're going to get into the documents now after I've gotten all this out of my brain. I have been thinking about this like all day, and my dad finally left and went home, and we RIP'd our little fancy bear hamster barbecue. What's up, little dude? So I finally got to sit down and get all of it out. And as you can see, I wrote it down on this little notebook. Old school, because I was in the living room thinking. Yeah, but now I want to know what you guys think. It doesn't fit. Like what they're trying to say that he did to go back to that area, it's not fitting. And I don't see how they don't have more footage of that when they're trying to basically claim that there is motive for him going back, i.e. the knife sheath. I left the sheath. I've got to go back and get it. And then he goes and the sheath is still there. Well, why would that be? And I mean, look, I thought about this in the very beginning whenever we first heard the rumor of the door and then saw in the PCA that the person apparently went back. I questioned this. Did he go back to see if he could ninja style back into that house and get that knife sheath? Because at this point, there's no cops, there's no crazy situation going on, and maybe he just thinks, well, it's been a few hours and nothing's happened, so maybe I actually have a chance. Maybe they're just all still asleep or just no one's noticed. I don't know. But maybe the person tried to go back in and get the knife sheath, but then couldn't because they realized, why is that front door open? I didn't leave that front door open. That means somebody in that house is awake. That means there's something else going on in there. That was one of my original thoughts. And I'd gladly go back to that if they can prove to me that Bryan Kohberger was actually the one in the area that night. Because the 4chan post that has a whole lot of information that's now factually accurate is also claiming that the girls were claiming to have been hearing two males rummaging around upstairs. That they thought it was some sort of after party. And that matches a lot with what we're now learning about how Dylan apparently was hearing music and singing, literally within seconds of all this going down. I'm sorry. No, they're going to have to do a whole lot more to prove their point with the things that we still know are in question here and need answers. But I want to know how you guys are feeling about all of this down in the comments. If you like the way that I present this information and give my opinion, please don't forget to leave a like on the way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed already. And please don't forget to make sure that that notification bell is set to all so you don't miss any of my rants, reviews, reactions, updates, or deep dives. See y'all.